And, I want to take this opportunity now to also bring up our other Bob. Bob Chapman is our guest for this entire hour. And then in the last hour, we're actually going to play this eugenics rant of Alex Jones for an entire hour. How are you, Bob?
I'm fine, thank you. And it's interesting. I'm running into more and more stuff on eugenics, and Sotomayor referred to that in Roe versus Wade. People didn't realize what she was saying, but she's spoken before about eugenics, which we'll get into later.
Well, absolutely, and one of the highlight clips that we're going to have to play again in this hour because it's just so important is Representative Joseph Pitts out of Pennsylvania on the House floor discussing Judge Ginsburg and her comments on pro-eugenics and population sustainability and control and their desire to root out, undesirables. That's right. That's what it is, Mr. Dacey. It's undesirables. Yes, go ahead.
All you have to do is go back to Germany, and there's a very, very important word in the German language, and it's called Untermenschen. And this is what the Nazis called subhumans, is what it is in English. Mm-hmm. And this was part of only allowing the, quote, intellectual and physical, and of course in the case of Germany, the purity of race to procreate. And this is what these people are talking about today, and they've been talking in America about it for a couple of hundred years, and most people don't know it. And I have one of the biggest libraries in eugenics anywhere, which I ended up giving away to USC and UCLA because nobody ever wanted to read them besides me. And so this is where they're headed in America. And this is how they're going to cull the population. They're going to use selective breeding, and people are going to be told you can't breed, and if you try to, you'll be aborted and sterilized.
Well, I'm not sure if you've read this information, but the current health bill that's been passed is actually going to give, and it's only gone through the House, like I said. Right, it hasn't been passed by the Senate, the health bill? I'm pretty sure it's just through the House. But the bill specifically says that they are providing funding for home visits that promote immunization through education. So in other words, they can enforce immunizations that you don't want to take by knocking on your door and saying you must take it. More on that on the other side. We're joined by Bob Dacey in studio and Bob Chapman over the phone. It's the Alex Jones Show. I'm Jason Burma sitting in. PrisonPlanet.tv, Infowars.com. And we are back, joined by Bob Dacey and Bob Chapman. I am Jason Burma sitting in for Alex Jones. It is the Alex Jones Show. And we were talking a little eugenics. And again, in the health care bill, they're saying that federally they will fund, state teams to conduct interventions in private homes. And here's just a little subsection. The program authorizing home interventions to promote immunization falls under Subtitle C, creating healthier communities. So, again, they're going to try to pressure you through your neighbors. This subtitle directs the Secretary of Health and Human Services to establish a demonstration program to award grants to states to improve the provision of recommended immunizations for children, adolescents, and adults through the use of evidence-based, population-based interventions for quote-unquote high-risk populations. Mr. Chapman, what does that sound like to you?
It sounds like you got a police state, and they're going to tell you what to do whether you like it or not.
Exactly, and with all this hype surrounding the swine flu and Obama's science czar openly writing about this stuff, how do you feel about it, Mr. Dacey?
Well, I think it's really neat. I mean, this John Holdren guy wrote this book, back in in the early 70s, and it perfectly dovetails with what we're talking about here. He says on page 786 through 787, the development of a long-term sterilizing capsule that could be implanted under the skin and removed when pregnancy is desired opens additional possibilities for coercive fertility control. The capsule could be implanted at puberty and might be removable with official permission for a limited number of births.
Well,
right there. It's all perfect.
Well, let's go back to that term, coercive fertility control. See, in this memo that they had to put out yesterday as this stuff is starting to surface, they're saying that Obama's science czar does not support coercive population control.
What is that? I'm confused.
Yeah, it sounds like semantics to me.
Coercive fertility control, but not coercive population. Oh, I get it.
I think that they're synonyms, aren't they?
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, it's the manipulation of the language, and these guys are masters of manipulating the language, and they do so on so many levels, Mr. Chapman.
They certainly do. And it's amazing that people are able to go in and pull out these juicy little tidbits like you just read about what they're really all about, where they're headed with this thing. And, you know, I've been talking about this since the mid-1960s and regional government and things like that, and people thought we were crazy. And, you know, here it is now. It's happening, and it's absolutely downright frightening.
I absolutely agree. I kind of want to jump topics here and get into the economy. I got a couple stories in front of me. U.S. video game sales post largest decline since 2000. One of the only really unbeatable industries, the ones that you've seen grow and grow and grow, despite economic times, have been these big blockbuster video games that are now grossing more than major motion pictures. And now, since the first time since 2000, almost a decade ago, they're seeing their largest decline. Can't be good news for this economy. Even GE is saying that their revenue's down, and we're talking about one of the biggest media, military, industrial complex companies out there in the world.
Well, that's correct. And we are in depression. We started this past February, and it's an inflationary environment, and that inflationary environment will get worse over the next couple of years. And then we'll go into a deflationary environment. And I think what's interesting here is that this is the epitome of Keynesianism, which is a school of economics. The antithesis to that is classical economics, and it looks like the European Central Bank, which represents 16 of about 29 nations in Europe, and they are taking the classical tact, which is to yes, take interest rates down, but reduce the amount of money and credit being injected in the system. And just to show you the difference, the interest rates are all down. But on the other hand, the money supply in the United States and the United Kingdom and many other nations is up about 18%. And in the Eurozone, it's only up 3.7%. And that's down from a plus 12.8 about a year and a half ago. So they are taking the other tact in Europe.
Well, what do you think is going to happen in the next few months in light of the last G8 summit, in light of this BRIC conference, in light of Russia's Medvedev getting out there and showing people the prototype, and a minted prototype, might I add, for a global currency coin?
Well, it's something that it was bound to come, and I think what they're really looking for here is an international trading unit at first. I expect there's going to be another meeting similar to the Smithsonian-type meeting that was held in the early 70s and the Plaza Accords in 1985, and I think all the nations are going to get together within the next 6 months, and I think they're going to realign their currencies against one another. And there'll be all these cross currencies, and they'll have these experts working at, you know, what's going to be devalued and what's going to be revalued. And I think that's going to happen, and I think it's going to be brought on by pressure on the United States dollar. The USDX is down from 89.5. It's trading around 79.5, and I expect it to test 71.18. And if it does that between now and the end of October, we're going to have pressure on the dollar like we had about a year and a third ago when other nations didn't want to accept the dollar, especially in trade and for people who were on vacation and things like that. If you remember, there were stories back then about that. And I think that's going to happen again, and I think it could cause a short bank holiday in the United States.
Well, that would be something we haven't seen in so long, and it does seem to be going that way with, you know, Brazil, Russia, India, and China openly saying that they want a separate world reserve currency. Mr. Dacey?
I don't want a separate world reserve currency. I would like to have our currency be strong so that they stop printing it like it's going out of style every 5 seconds and blowing away the value of it all the time. Of course, they've been doing it since, 1913? These people don't even know what classical economics is. I'm not an economics advisor. I don't really know that much about all that stuff, but I do know this. I was up in a conference back in 2006 up in Waco. It was a follow-up conference to that NAFTA thing that they had in March, where Bush was up there and they were doing the superhighway. And
was that the CAFTA project or SPP?
The Free Trade Area of the Americas.
Okay.
What it was. I was up there for the New American, and I was talking to these business people from Baylor University and these economics professors and the top guys at a little get together that we had, and I brought up the economic policies of von Mises. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Mm-hmm.
And they looked at me like I was crazy. They didn't know who he was. I mean, literally, they didn't know who he was. They didn't know what I was. This the head of the economics department at Baylor University didn't know who the guy was.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand it.